Hey up everyone, this is part 2 of my journey into the wonderful world of Italian motorcycles. If you haven't seen the first part, I will link it at the end. It's definitely worth a watch. But today, I'm looking at what I consider to be the renaissance of the Italian motorcycle industry. After such a long period of Japanese domination on the road and the track, the Italian manufacturers were always going to have a hard fight to claw back their share of the industry. The bikes that made that a reality are as exciting as the bikes built to try and save the industry in the first place. These are motorcycles that pushed the boundaries of what we thought possible. They brought a level of power never seen before on road-going motorcycles. There were also leaders in the introduction and extended use of electronics on motorcycles. Whether you think that's a good thing or not is another question entirely. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoy it, and it's always worth taking a look at the fantastic comments. You can let me know your thoughts there too. If you like a good read, you can find the complete article on the website, and you'll find the link below in the description. You can also get in touch with me via the contacts form there if you need to. So, back to the bikes. I will begin where I finished the last video, with the Bimota Tesi. The first Tesi hit the market in 1990, powered by the Ducati 851cc engine, but it evolved over many years. They were differentiated by the 1D, 2D and 3D names, and used Ducati engines until 2014. Then, after the Kawasaki buyout, it was relaunched again as the Tesi H2. The first prototype actually goes back to 1983, but it took until 1990 for the design to be ready for road use. The Tesi is like no other motorcycle. The first 1D was groundbreaking, and even today that 40-year-old design still looks modern. At 188 kilos dry weight, it carried its weight low and central to give perfect balance, and the Ducati engine will take it up to a theoretical top speed of 155 miles an hour, or 250 kilometers an hour if you prefer. The front swing arm and hub center steering give it a unique look that some will love and others will hate. That doesn't matter. It's a high quality motorcycle, a niche motorcycle not built for the masses. In 2004, it evolved into the Tesi 2D, when dry weight was brought down to an incredible 154 kilos, or just 340 pounds. Unheard of for a 1000cc motorcycle. This bike was even more visually striking, and the swing arms were strengthened in a major and very obvious way, giving the whole bike a more brutal look. But research and development continued. 2006 brought us the Tesi 3D, and it went into production in 2007. The swing arms were redesigned again, this time to mimic the Velici-style trellis frames Ducati had immortalised, and it transformed the bike completely. The engine grew to almost 1100cc, and the look got even more aggressive. Front suspension was redesigned with a pull rod system that lowered the centre of gravity even more. All the bodywork was made from carbon and the wheels were forged aluminium. This time, those unique side frame plates were shown off instead of being hidden behind a fairing, and the complete design is simply breathtaking. We have a saying that describes these bikes. They really are rare as hen's teeth, but they are unmistakably Italian. The next motorcycle here ended up being two different bikes. The story of the Cagiva Grand Canyon and Navigator starts like all good Italian stories with a big row. After using Ducati engines for years and even owning the company outright at one point, the Castiglione brothers sold all of their shares in Ducati. This led to Ducati refusing to sell engines to Cagiva anymore, so some of the bikes in the Cagiva range needed a rethink. Massimo Tamburini had developed an incredible motorcycle in the Cagiva Grand Canyon, but a new engine was needed. Suzuki stepped in with their legendary TL1000 engine, This was a match made in heaven. The engine was far stronger and more powerful than the Ducati engine. It finally gave the big Suzuki V-twin engine a frame that would handle its power, and it created the most powerful adventure bike of its day. You can see more about it in the video linked above. The Cagiva Navigator was ahead of its time. The adventure bike market was in its infancy, and many people still saw adventure bikes as the slower, boring option. This definitely wasn't the case with the Cagiva Navigator. The riding position is more supermoto than anything else, and it really did have the power and torque to embarrass plenty of sports bikes. Having owned one, I can speak from experience, and they are fantastic riders' bikes. A real hooligan that rewards you for riding hard. It likes being pushed into corners, and is possibly one of the best mile munchers I have ever owned. Next, we have the Aprilia Pegaso, which went through 3 different engines in its life. From 1990 to 1993, it had an air-cooled 600cc Rotax engine similar to the one Cagiva were using in the canyon and river. This was replaced by a water-cooled 650 Rotax lump from 94 to 2005. Later ones had the 660 Yamaha engine from the Tenere, and many will say that that is the one to own. I disagree. I think the water-cooled 650 Rotax engine is much better, but I am biased. I am a certified Rotax fan. It is a similar engine to the 650 used by the BMW for years, but it has a 5-valve head, it revs out better than the Yamaha, and is never short of a wheelie or two. To me, it just feels like a stronger engine all around. This is footage of my first ride on the 1997 Aprilia Pegaso 650 I acquired, and there's more in the video linked above. Yes, this is me not buying any more bikes. I can't quite believe how light it is compared to any modern ADV bikes. A dry weight of 157 kilos or 346 pounds means even fully fueled it weighs just 175 kilos. Putting bikes like the Tenere 700 and Aprilia's own Tuareg to shame. The Rotax engine is strong and revs out smoothly for a single. Compared to my old DL600 and KLR 600, it is comfortable and fast. Who knows, at this rate I might well end up keeping it longer than I had planned. For a 25-year-old motorcycle, it's still in remarkable condition, a testament to the quality of the original finish and some careful owners. Next, we come to another motorcycle penned by the masterful hand of Massimo Tamburini. The Ducati 916 was to become the dominant force in superbike racing during the 90s. In the hands of Carl Fogarty and Troy Corser, it won 6 out of 7 of the World Superbike titles, with only John Kosinski breaking the dominance in 1997 on the Honda. I think there's little I can say about the 916 that hasn't already been said by someone. What may surprise you is how small and compact this bike is. With a wheelbase of just 1410mm or 56 inches, a seat height of just 790mm or 31 inches, and a wet weight of just 204 kilos, this was a bike built for sharp steering as well as speed. In 1994, it had 115 horsepower on tap, and this was increased for some of the later specials, producing around 125 horsepower. However, it was always the torque of the Desmo engine that set it apart from the rest. This was the last Tamburini design before he departed for Cagiva and to concentrate more on Bimota. Its styling was continued right through to the 996 and 998 final edition in 2004. Its silhouette is as recognised as any motorcycle ever built. Its sleek lines and aggressive stance make it look like it's travelling 100 miles an hour even when it's stood still. It still stands as the epitome of a road-going race bike. The Moto Guzzi Centauro is a bike that divides people, and I have to say, I love them. It's another motorcycle that has unmistakable lines. Now for starters, I'll apologise to any purists out there already shouting about how I say the name. I know I'm supposed to pronounce it Guzzi, but I guess old habits die hard. They will always be Guzzi's to me. The Centauro was built to celebrate Guzzi's 75th anniversary and used the then new 8-valve overhead cam Daytona engine, which gave it 95 horsepower. Now that might not sound a lot, but with almost 100 Newton meters of torque from below 6,000 RPM, this bike had masses of grunt for the real world. Fitted with WP suspension, Brembo Serio Oro brakes and a bi-tubo steering damper, the chassis is stable and inspires confidence. You definitely feel a part of the bike when you are sat on it, unlike many bikes. I just love the flowing organic lines, and have to say, I don't think there are many bikes that have the sheer presence of the Centauro. It truly is a one-of-a-kind motorcycle. Now, this next part was a difficult one for me, and the compromise was to mention several bikes from one range. Although they had a history, Aprilia was still seen as the new kid on the block. But that isn't always a bad thing. It meant whatever they did, they were breaking new ground. In the late 90s, they really came of age as a company and released some of the most fantastic bikes made anywhere. The first bike I will mention is the incredible RSV Mini. But alongside the Mini will always live the Tuono. The Gen 1 Aprilia RSV Mini is the bike that put Aprilia on the map in many ways. After its introduction in 1998, a homologation special was built in the RSVR. Troy Corsa went on to take third place in the Riders' Championship in 2000, just a year later. The Rotax designed engine was a compact 60-degree V-twin that kicked out a massive 128 horsepower in the standard model and 133 horsepower in the RSVR. This gradually increased to around 140 horsepower by the time it was replaced. But again, it was the massive torque of the engine that was its most impressive characteristic. To put it into perspective, the RSV Mini was sat on showroom floors at almost exactly the same power as the full factory Ducati race bike. This was a time when anyone could just go and buy a bike fit for world superbikes. Then came the Tuono. Stripped bare of its bodywork, the RSV became the ultimate factory street fighter. With more power than any monster had ever dreamt of, I have to say that for me, the bike is possibly the best looking swing arm ever produced, and the rear light cluster is a masterpiece. It also happens to be the only bit of the bike that most riders see as it flies past. Fitting, really. Just separating those two bikes was hard enough, but when you consider that Aprilia were also making the World Championship winning SXV 450 and 550 Supermotos, the Falco, Dorsa, Shiva and Capanard, you can see why I was having problems. This is an era when Aprilia earned the title of being the Italian Honda. They pioneered ride-by-wire throttle control and were always at the cutting edge of electronic integration on motorcycles. They aren't the simplest bikes, but they are fantastic riders' bikes, built to a very high standard. Now, Laverda were another company that had died and been resurrected. The new company went through several phases and multiple owners. They built what was basically several versions of one bike. Initially, the engine was a bored-out version of the old Laverda Montruk engine that had hotter cams and many other changes. Then, it was decided that water cooling was the way forward, and the 750 engine was the result of that redesign. The 750 Formula was the top-spec, high-performance model. The cams were reprofiled again, and the engine pushed even further. This was a great engine, but by this point, it was pushed to its absolute limits. They are affectionately known as hand grenades, but what an engine! It rides more like a two-stroke than any other four-stroke I have ever ridden. Keep it spinning and it's a joy to ride. However, the most incredible part of this design was the chassis. I owned a 750S for many years, and it is without a shadow of doubt the best handling motorcycle I have ever ridden. You can see from the video linked above how the bike handles around Cadwell Park, the most wonderful and technically challenging racetrack in the UK. Designed by the great Nico Backer, the chassis was a fairly standard looking twin beam, but it was a far cry from anything else on the market. To put it into perspective, a Backer frame bow chassis without wheels or suspension will cost you in the region of €15,000. That goes up to over €20,000 with wheels and suspension. So even at today's prices, the Laverda is a steal for the price they are available for. Even the die-hard Braganza Laverda owners are finally beginning to realise what a fantastic rider's bike the same 750 is, and the 750 formula is the best example that was made. Next, we have the MV Agusta F4. Rarely have so many technical innovations been thrown at one engine. With a heavy heart, Claudio Castiglione had scrapped the Cagiva 500cc Grand Prix team, and he set the Cagiva Research Centre the job of building the most advanced four-stroke superbike engine they could. At the helm of the project was the same genius that penned the Ducati 916. Massimo Tamburini had been central to the design of the radial valve system developed alongside Ferrari, and this was the first bike to take that idea and use it on a road bike. But this was no ordinary road bike. The 754-cylinder engine would rev to 12,500 RPM, producing over 125 horsepower on the base model and 140 horsepower on the SPR model. It didn't hit the maximum torque figure until 10,500 revs. The frame is a piece of chrome moly artwork, and the engine block was designed to be as narrow as possible to reduce overall drag. The exhaust came from Tamburini spending a day stripping Castiglione's Ferrari to see how they'd designed its exhaust, and resulted in the unique 4 under-seat silencer design that was one of the bike's most noticeable features. The single-sided swing arm is another one of those features. Built from magnesium alloy, as well as being gorgeous, it weighs just 3 kilograms. Even the aluminium version used on the F4S only weighed 4.5 kilos. I could go on waxing lyrical about almost every component used on the early F4s, as it really was a collection of the best of everything, put together by one of the industry's most renowned designers. You could see this bike as the result of all of the efforts the Castiglione brothers had put into motorcycles and racing over the years. They had nurtured the Cagiva brand, rescued Ducati, resurrected MV Agusta, and put everything that they had learned into building the F4. That is the sort of dedication that deserves the utmost respect. They helped to make the Italian motorcycle industry what it is today. Now, I know this next bike is another one that will split opinions, and I'm in no way saying it was without flaws. However, the Benelli Tornado Tre is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful bikes ever built. Andrea Maloney had taken on the job of reviving the company in 1995, and by 2000 had reached a point where he thought Benelli could compete at World Superbike level, so a race team was born. The 3-cylinder water-cooled engine produced over 140 horsepower and had torque figures that rivaled the big V-twins from Ducati and Aprilia. So in theory, it was the best of both worlds. It did score points, but was never on the podium. However, what it did was give Benelli a great opportunity to perfect the road bike. The bike was designed around a minimum drag concept, and in an out-of-the-box moment, the whole cooling system was turned around so that 2 small fans on the back tail unit would suck air through a rear-mounted radiator linked to the engine by long coolant lines. The bike went through many changes, and although the build quality was good, the consistency and reliability of the bike was questionable at times. The bike grew to 1130cc, and the bigger engine produced 163 horsepower. The new, bigger Tornado looked more muscular all around. It had a very distinctive headlight shape, made up of two vertically mounted projector lights in a thin vertical strip at the front of the pointed nose. This bike does have a very distinct style and sound all of its own. This next bike is another anomaly from Moto Guzzi. The MGS01 is the mutant child of Getzi and Brian and the Style Laboratory, set up by Moto Guzzi to explore more radical approaches and new technology. Built around the air-cooled 4-valve transverse V-twin engine from the Centauro and Daytona, and the 6-speed box from the V11, every inch of this motorcycle was built from the ground up. High compression 3-segment Cosworth pistons and a 15-litre airbox pushed power up to 122 horsepower, but again it was the torque of this muscular engine that shone through. The swing arm is a striking piece of brutalist art. Valves were made from nickel chromium superalloys for better thermal stability, and it had ceramic coated cylinder bores. Bushings were replaced by bearings too. Despite the massive engine, the whole bike weighed in at just 192 kilos dry, so about 210 kilos with a full tank. Weight distribution was kept as balanced as possible, with just a 200-gram weight difference front to rear. Brembo radial calipers with Öhlins suspension front and back, and a 56.1-inch or 1,445mm wheelbase gave this the handling of a pure sport bike, but with every part of the design on show. It's still a modern-looking design over 20 years on, so you can imagine the impact it had at the time. Show after show the crowds poured around them, but above all else, this was a rider's bike. Now I'm going to have to make this one the last one on the list for now. I may come back in the future to add more, but it is endless when you love Italian bikes like I do. So, last for today, we have the Moto Morini Corsaro, made between 2005 and 2013. The design concept was comprehensive. It read that this motorcycle should show how power and elegance, solidity and agility, and tradition and future can exist in harmony in a motorcycle design. Cradling the engine is a classic Velici-inspired trellis chassis, built from wide bore tubing, which almost mocks the lighter tubing of the Ducati Monster chassis. The engine too is a V-twin, but an 1187cc 87-degree V-twin, designed by Franco Lambertini. The Bialbero engine was the centerpiece of this bike. Brutally strong, it produced a massive 123 Nm of torque at 6,500 revs, and pulled to 140 horsepower at the 8.5 RPM redline. Front suspension was top-spec Marzocchi, upside-down forks with 50mm stems, and rear suspension was a high-tech German Sachs unit. Brembo brakes and wheels finished off the package in style and helped make this one of the most muscular-looking naked bikes to come out of Italy at the time. This bike is, in my opinion, one of the best and purest examples of motorcycle design at its very best. It took the concept of the already successful monster and just gave it more muscles. Who could argue with that approach? Well, I got to the mid-2000s this time, so I guess there will have to be another video at some point to cover the newer bikes that haven't got to look in yet. There are plenty, and so it will take time thinning them out, but I'll get there when I can. I hope you enjoyed the video and aren't too annoyed if I didn't include a bike that you'd hoped I would. I did try to cover some of the lesser noticed bikes as well as the ones that we all know and love. What I consider the best is not always the most famous. Otherwise I'd be listening to Boyzone, not Primus. Thanks for watching, and if you've got this far, please like the video so we know you've enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it already, Part 1 looks at some of the earlier Italian supermodel motorcycles, and you can follow the link at the end. It's definitely worth checking out. Take a look at the channel for more news, views and adventures from the world of motorcycles. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next video, and do share the video with anyone you think will be interested if you could. The renaissance of the Italian motorcycle industry was an exciting time to ride, and there is plenty more to come from the newer bikes. I promise I'll get there at some point. You can visit the website or the Red Bull shop linked in the description for the best biker t-shirts and other merchandise too. There are brand specific shop fronts with designs from Laverda, Ducati, Cagiva, MV Agusta and Moto Guzzi and Benelli. There are some new Bimota designs up now too. There are also more exciting motorcycle adventures and other stories from the shed and beyond on the website as well as the channel, so why not grab a cuppa and take a look around. You won't be disappointed. I hope you get some great riding in and find some fantastic roads. Ride free everyone!